So, Yannik, how did you get into crypto? What was your crypto story?
Yeah, so originally I think I got into crypto through studying law back in the day. So originally after high school, I decided to study law, and then since I've been programming my whole life, was into so-called legal tech, and there at a legal tech conference, I guess you could call it, I met a lawyer who was deeply into blockchain, and gave a workshop around smart contract development on Ethereum. And so that's the first interaction I had with crypto back in the day. And then for founding Arcium, really getting deep into crypto, that was, I guess, through my co-founders who had been building in crypto longer, and all of us were deeply into cryptography and privacy technology, I guess. And so it made sense to do it in crypto. And so that's how I then got into crypto. So I wasn't really a crypto user or developer or anything like that before we founded our startup. But at that point, I got into crypto.
Wow, so a full baptism of fire.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And how did your co-founders and yourself meet?
Through studying computer science and math at university. Yeah.
Awesome. And how long ago was that?
We met 4-ish years ago, and we founded Arcium 3 years and 3 months ago, something like that. And yeah, I met the first of my co-founders a year prior to founding Arcium, and our second co-founder through university, and this shared interest that we had in crypto at that point. And my final fourth co-founder I met at a Solana hacker house, actually. So at the entrance gate to a Solana hacker house in Prague, we've met. Yeah. So that's how the four of us came together, and then we started building Arcium, and the four of us together went to a hacker house in Miami. We shared an Airbnb there together, and then we formally decided to found Arcium. Yeah. And there was an exciting journey, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose there's moments where you can spend just a few days together hacking, learning about each other, and then actually realizing, under pressure, you guys work all right.
I think so. Yeah, I think this that was an important phase also because it was the first time that all co-founders in person worked together. Really in a constrained space, I guess, and we're really living the startup life. I think that was an important phase also to realize that this team of founders can work well together, and we can build something together.
And tell us, what is Arcium, and why did you start it?
Yeah, so with Arcium, we're building what we call the encrypted supercomputer. So we allow for any type of computation to be executed in a fully encrypted way. And that's something of high importance to crypto because by default, everything on top of a blockchain, a public ledger, is public, right? So you can see everything. And there's a lot of applications where there's a requirement for privacy, and maintaining some level of privacy. And so the technology that we've developed allows to not just have privacy and encrypt information, but at the same time be able to run computations over that data. And what that means is that with Arcium, we're operating over so-called encrypted shared state. So every user on the blockchain can just encrypt information, and using Arcium, it's possible to process all of that data without having to give any third party access into your data. Yet you're able to trade, to exchange, to train even AI models over that encrypted data. And that's incredibly powerful and wouldn't function without decentralization. So for us, we are utilizing cryptography for that. And that cryptography requires distributed parties to run those computations. So Arcium on its own isn't a blockchain, but instead it allows for the private and fully encrypted, trustless execution of computations on existing blockchain networks, and beyond, also enabling Web2 players to use that technology.
And you mentioned you've been going for just over 3 years now. So can you tell us a little bit about, where are you now as a company? What kind of key metrics and traction have you picked up to date?
Yeah, it's interesting because we originally started under a different name, and back in the day we were building out transactional privacy, I guess, with a different kind of cryptography. And then 1 year ago we evolved into Arcium, and basically from technology and cryptography that we were building out and realizing the potential of that technology to be utilized to offer private encrypted computing to any kind of application. And so we went through this evolution process 1 year ago, and since then, just last week, have shipped our public testnet. So Arcium now is in public testnet, where anyone can start building these kinds of applications, where within your smart contracts, the first network that we're supporting in that regard is Solana. Within your smart contracts, developers can simply specify, I want this to be private now, this to be encrypted, this to be public, whatever, and that's it. They don't have to understand any of the underlying cryptography or mathematics. Instead, they can simply specify that should be private, that should be public, and that enables way more powerful applications. So that's the state Arcium currently is in. Public testnet has just launched.
That's really interesting. So you had a different idea originally, and at some point, because I did see your post, which was it was like happy birthday 1 year for Arcium. So what was the original idea, and what was it that you had to go through to undertake that pivot, to get to what Arcium is today? Like, what was that evolution, and how did that change happen?
Yeah, so originally, I think it was relatively limited in the kinds of applications that it enabled, because technology-wise, it only allowed you to have some secret that you wanted to keep private on the blockchain, right? Could be your asset holdings, right? So you wanted to send me some funds without exposing to the world that you just send some funds. But it's quite one-dimensional, because you always had to remain the custodian of that secret, and it allowed only for those super limited applications of exchanging information, right? And so we evolved from this transactional approach to privacy to a generalized computational approach, where with Arcium, we are able to compute over everything, right? Whereas previously it was only you computing over your secrets and generating some mathematical proof, that a so-called zero knowledge proof that maintains the privacy. But now with Arcium, it's Arcium running those computations without Arcium seeing the data. Yet it's possible to run those computations as if Arcium was seeing the data, and that's way more powerful. It really is a dimension change for the kinds of applications that this enables. Because what this enables, and I think that's a very, very tangible example, would be that we have 100 people that have some highly sensitive data, and collectively they want to train a machine learning model. With Arcium, they can do so in an incredibly straightforward way, where everyone just encrypts their data, submits that data, all is controlled through a smart contract. Then a model is being trained, and the model itself doesn't even have to be public. It can remain fully encrypted, so neither Arcium nor anyone in the world knows that model. Yet you can structure the smart contract in a way where you say, okay, if you want to use the model without seeing the model, you pay some fee, and then you submit encrypted inputs, and you get an encrypted output back. So there's end-to-end encrypted privacy for all different kinds of applications. And I think there was a important shift for us as well, because I think privacy needs to add more power to applications in order to find adoption. And so that's why we decided to go down this route, because we can offer way more powerful applications through this.
Yeah, I can see how the more generalized approach would just unlock so much scale. Your kind of your founder journey, the fact that you've gone through like a pivot of this kind in the first place is very natural. But you know, founding startups is not easy. It's very difficult. You know, has there been a moment, like a really, really hard point in your journey that you learned something that you couldn't have learned any other way?
I mean, I think there's always hard moments as a founder, and that's what makes you a founder, right? Not going down the easy route, but instead having a vision that you want to fulfill. So I think pivoting is part of that process, and of course that decision at that point was a big decision and difficult decision to take, right? Because you have stakeholders, you have investors and everything, but all of those luckily have been incredibly supportive towards our undertakings, and I think for us, I couldn't pinpoint one specific event where I said, okay, that's the most difficult aspect, but we've from the beginning been building on Solana, right? And have been very closely tied to the entire Solana ecosystem. So I think that ecosystem itself had some very difficult phases, especially I think it was in 22, right? With the collapse of FTX. So there were difficult times, but I think building through those difficult times and believing in a vision and fulfilling that vision, I think made us stronger as founders. So I think it's important to be able to ignore noise and really have a clear vision and understanding of what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and being unwavering in that approach and knowing when to change course or not. Yeah, we love the Solana ecosystem. We've got education for them that they're grant funded since 2023, post FTX and everything. But incredibly hard to find builders who could create the education for us, because most people, it was such a brand new thing as opposed to like Solidity, where there was so many different avenues you could take. So yeah, definitely there was, I can see the teething pains of being in Solana, but versus then, but to now where, you know, where it's got to, it's brilliant. How would you describe your style of leadership? And by the way, I know this is kind of a hard question, because I suppose there's other ways to frame it. Like if you were to think of maybe how your team would describe your style of leadership, you know, what would that be?
So I think what let me think about that.
Would you say you're a fair leader, a progressive leader? Would you say you focus on autonomy? Are there certain things that you really, really value in how you want to lead?
Yeah, so I think fairness, that's an important value, and I think at Arcium we've always valued that incredibly. And what's important with fairness is that it's not a one-way street, right? That it's really going both directions, and that's especially important at a team that is entirely remote, right? Where it's not everyone sitting in one office and working there all day long, but everyone is distributed remotely. So I think there it's even more difficult sometimes to apply that style. But I think I'm incredibly lucky with the team that we have at Arcium. Both that we are this team of 4 founders, I think is an important aspect in that regard, that there's 4 people that just are 100% aligned, right? And are steering the ship. And at the same time that the team also has a shared vision and is basically living for this product. So I think we have a very high level of autonomy. And I think it's important in that regard when you have a high level of autonomy and just try to be a very, very fair leader, that everyone in the team shares the vision and is proud of what they are working on. So it's not just a job where you clock in and do your work, but everyone is on fire and wanting to see the vision be fulfilled, right? And I think we see that, I see that in every aspect of our organization, both on the engineering side of things, where all of the engineers are doing amazing work, all of the researchers are doing amazing work, and at the same time, in community marketing and business development, the same thing applies. So I think the core aspect to that as a leader is being able to build a clear vision and communicating that vision, and then getting everyone on board to be aligned on that vision. I think that's the core prerequisite.
Yeah, if you can paint that picture clearly, every single department knows exactly what the end, well, the North Star is. I find this dynamic incredibly interesting that you've said you have 4. There are 4 of you, because how do you guys come to consensus? Is it has to be 100%, 75%? Is it ever got to the point where it's 2 of you and 2 of you in disagreement? How do you find that dynamic in coming to high management level decisions?
So I think it's when I think one of the big advantages of being multiple founders is that there is other people with other positions. I think if you're a solo founder and just convinced 100% of every decision you're making, it's can sometimes lead to bad decision making. And I think if there's multiple perspectives, because the players, everyone in the team has different experiences, has different roles, has a different perspective on issues, I think it actually becomes easier to have a decision making process where you're discussing all of the different possibilities and then get aligned there. And yeah, of course we have a process for that, and I think the result of that process really is that we find a solution together, and I think that has always been the case in the past.
You personally, you've created a really strong founder brand. It doesn't take long to know that you represent purple and care about encryption. Do you have any advice for other founders in how to successfully build your own brand and your own message online?
Yeah, so I think what really matters again is having this clear vision. I think that's core, and you need to find a way to differentiate yourself from any kind of startup, not just your closest competitors, I guess, but in general. You need to have an interesting value proposition that you're bringing to the world. And then I think it becomes easier to also communicate that vision and form your profile. I think in my case, I think what I've just understood is that you need to be sort of more unhinged sometimes, and need to go out of your comfort zone, right? I think maybe 1 year ago or 2 years, yeah, even 1 year ago, I think I wouldn't have been comfortable just posting these kinds of pictures and statements associated with myself publicly. But there was one point where, yeah, basically some other founder of a large crypto startup really gave me a lot of advice on how to approach those things. And then once you've crossed that point, it becomes way easier, and it's a lot of fun. So I think it has to be fun. It has to feel comfortable for you. Has to really be you, your true self, right? And if you're unhinged, then you should be unhinged. And I think that's why it's relatively easy for me. But it took time to get to this point and to that realization, and then be comfortable with that.
I love that. Yeah, I think authenticity is absolutely key. And as you mentioned there, like, if you do have a really interesting value proposition, that is just the foundation for building everything else on top of it. How you communicate that message, why you are better, how you're going to be better than anyone else. As you mentioned, not even just to your competitors, just you are your own brand. There's nothing else, compared. And that's and making that feeling happen is what you want in customers, your team, all stakeholders. So that's really, really interesting. I'm going to ask one last question here before a quick fire round, but since this is your favorite topic, what does the future of privacy and encryption look like, in the next 5 years? And what's the role of Arcium in that vision?
I think Arcium within the next 5 years sort of will become the encrypted fiber optics cable, if you will, of the internet, which means that for blockchains, which I think will find a lot of adoption within that time frame, there will be this need for encrypted computing, and we'll be serving that. And we will see that within basically every application, there is some part of it that can now remain encrypted, can now remain privacy preserving, without getting rid of the value that transparency serves. Because with encrypted computing, we can at the same time have the same accountability protocols in place that transparent public systems have, because it's not a one-dimensional concept of privacy, but a multidimensional privacy. So I think that's an important aspect. And what we will see as well is traditional players using that technology specifically because of its superior privacy preserving aspects, because it's an entirely trustless, only on cryptography and distributed systems based approach. And we will see everything from businesses to entire governments and international organizations using that technology, not caring about blockchain as the, underlying coordination layer, but caring about this specific value proposition that we are bringing. So I think that will, again, bring more adoption to distributed systems as well.
Awesome. Well, Yannik, it's been awesome having you on the podcast. I think the future is bright. The future is purple. I would like to ask us a few quick fire questions before we finish the call, just to get your take on a few things. The first one is basically getting your contrarian view. So what do you believe about crypto that most others don't?
So I think one big contrarian view might be that everything should be encrypted.
How did I know you were going to come up with that answer? Brilliant. What's more important, decentralization or speed?
I think both can go hand in hand. So I think decentralization for decentralization's sake doesn't make any sense. And I think what we need to build are superior products. And so I think if we look at Solana, for example, they have reached a significant level of decentralization while maintaining high speeds. So I think that really outlines the path that that decentralized protocols should take if they want to find adoption. I think that's what matters. That's the question that you need to ask yourself. Am I building something that has some political value proposition, and then we are going to be playing a political game, or are you actually building something that the world should be using? And so I think both can go hand in hand. And at Arcium, we are also going down a path where both go hand in hand, because through some new cryptographic protocols that we've built, there is trust reduction, while at the same time making the systems more scalable and faster. So I think both aren't exclusive to each other.
What's the one thing that you would change about crypto if you could?
So what I would change about crypto, I would right from the get-go have thought about privacy, I think. But I think it makes sense what we are trying to achieve with Arcium, which really is composable privacy, right? So not everything has to be encrypted. Instead, encrypt more, encrypt what makes sense, and in consequence, get more powerful applications. So that wasn't possible before. That's just something that has become possible now because of technological maturity. So I wouldn't just change that. That's basically what I'm doing. I'm changing that right now.
I love that. Well, that's a great way to end it, Yannik. Yeah, best of luck in achieving the vision of Arcium and encrypting the world and building the world supercomputer. Thanks for coming on, and yeah, hopefully we catch up soon.
Thanks for having me, Dan. It was a pleasure.